Uh, Hello, YouTube. Thought I should do some work on my social media stuff. I've been really tired, sleepy here lately. I've not really been on here doing much. Just not really feeling up to it. But anyways, that's kind of the point of this video and what I'm making it about to some extent is how not feeling up to it and how we should feel more up to it and how we need to do more to now mainly focus on concentrate on the Republican Party and getting them out of political office. And what we need to do after that, and how I think we need to do things or work. It doesn't work. Anyways, we need to focus more on the Republican Party and getting them out of office. And we all need to focus more on them. And this is not probably the best name for a video, but it's just the first thing I thought of, or what I thought might work. So I'm pushing it that. I'm naming it that. Anyways, this is about basically pushing out the Republican Party, and what you do after that is what you do after that. But right now, I needed to do work, so I figured I'd do YouTube first, post a video, because that's usually a little bit more, takes a little bit longer, so I figured I'd go ahead and do that first and get that out of the way and work on my other sites or pages or whatever later. But anyways, my opinion on Trump is this: I don't see how anyone could possibly vote for Trump this election, and I understand a lot of people don't want to vote for Biden either. But ultimately, I think you should, and I think that's what you have to do. Because the bottom line is this: all you have to do is look at Trump's statements, and then I'll tie that back to the larger platform and what is ultimately anti-you and anti-me. If you're watching this and I've talked to you and we got along, you probably agree with me on this. But his platform is what? No cashless bill. No cashless bill. I've went over that. That is an attack on the poor, and an attack on poor people. And it's racketeering for the state. And this is obviously the state, and this is kind of like temperance error. This is basically the morality police. This is them telling you, and it's not even that, because they don't even know you did anything. So you could be in jail for any trivial thing, have to pay fucking bail, and then you have to continue to be in jail because you can't come up with a bail. Or if you come up with a bail, you have to scrape up money, or if you're rich, you can pay it. And the entire thing, either way, it's just it's a way for the state to get money out of you because you have to pay bail. But why do you have to pay bail? They don't know you did anything, and they don't know you did anything yet. So why are you paying bail? Do you see what I'm saying? This is a fine, and it's also bribery, and it's against the ideal of proven till innocent and proven guilty, because you can't take money from a person you haven't proven to do anything, because they're in jail until trial, so they haven't been tried. Do you see what I'm saying? And mostly the poor can't pay it, so it's just a bunch of shit. Anyways, I went too far into that. But then he says he's against low income housing, middle class communities. I'm sure I've talked about this before in here. I know I have, in fact. And I think I've talked about it on Twitter. I should probably talk more. But what that is to say is that, if it's low income housing, I'm guessing the housing is going to be pretty shitty anyways. But it is a better community, so maybe there's less crime, less violence. Maybe the schooling is better. I shouldn't say good. I posted this before. I think I've said this before. If it's schooling, public school is probably going to suck, but it's better than other schooling, and they have a better chance of getting some kind of education, getting a better job. You don't have drive-bys and people less likely to get killed, and the police might not be as violent as they might be in another area that's poor. And again, this is not. A lot of people want to frame this as totally racial, and there might be a racial bias to it, but I've said this before. The poor people in this country now, it's no longer a minority issue. The majority of poor people in the United States of America are now poor. And there were always larger numbers of poor people than what they said they were right. You can go back to 1999, Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP. They did a survey, I remember seeing in a documentary, of the number of people that liked Eminem, and the majority of white. And it was white, and they referenced another survey, and it showed the majority of the poor and people living at the poverty line or below the poverty line in America had become majority white. Now, white people, you have to remember, are the majority of the country. So of course, you're going to have a lot more. There's a lot more chance you're going to have a lot of poor white people. But my point is, they're still there regardless, and we do exist. And there's more poor white people now than ever, and there's a lot of poor black people, poor Asian people, and everything. And this is a discrimination against all of them. And it's telling a poor single mother, no, you can't. If you're a poor single mother, for example, you can't raise your children here where they might grow up and not be shot at or shoot someone. No, they have to go to the poorest possible area to do that, where we have police who are more violent and more likely to shoot you, where their schooling is not very good, where they're less likely to get into college, where there are less chances, less opportunities. He's more likely to either end up in a war or end up in prison or something else. And that's where we're sending you and your kids, because we don't want low-income housing in middle-class neighborhoods. And that is what he said. So he's attacking the poor. He's outright attacked the poor on two different fronts. Then you have the evangelical front. He did not run on this kind of obsessive, crazy nonsense the last time with these evangelical assholes or these evangelical cons. He did not do that. Now he is. And ultimately, the two things killing this country, and the two things we have to get rid of more than anything else, I think, is evangelical fundamentalist Christianity that is at the forefront of everything that is bad in America and in this country. It is at the forefront of why you can't have legal weed. I don't even know how much they care about that, but the ones that do are largely religious. They don't want you to be able to smoke weed, and that is not a Muslim problem. That is an evangelical Christian problem. Same thing for many other issues. Genital mutilation of children, circumcision, I've talked about. God forbid I make one video where I don't bring it up, but a lot of them support that, and it was started largely in this country by Christian evangelicals, and not other groups. They might have helped it happen, but it was mainly the Christians because they didn't want kids to masturbate, and that's the truth. And then capitalism pushes it, and that's the other thing. Capitalism is a major pusher of not helping bail out these corporations, and then they never pay the money back. And even when they have record profits, they don't bail it. They don't take it. They don't give you the money back. And then they say, well, we'll take our talents somewhere else. So you don't want to fucking make us pay the money back you owe us, or pay you back the money we owe you, rather. Well, okay, well then if that's the case, and your only talent is going bankrupt and then stealing money from us, I encourage you, take your talents to China, bankrupt their country like that, and see what they do. So they need to be fucking held responsible. If you don't want your economy to collapse and you have to bail them out, that's one thing, but make them pay the shit back. We don't do that, and we're not doing that. And they're the reason why so many people are going homeless. So many people can't pay rent and are becoming homeless. They're the major reason why you have an immigration problem, because they go into these other countries and destroy their countries and their agriculture and their economies. And then they come here and they let them in, not because they want to help them, but to make them work for very little to no money. And then you have to compete for jobs, and everyone ends up working for less. And they're the main thing pushing against a universal basic income. The number one thing pushing for the wars in these other countries is because they're making $1 of those countries, because they set up a sweatshop in Iraq instead of a factory in New York or somewhere, or a factory in Boston or wherever the fuck. So instead of getting money from getting their clothing and their products from the United States and American workers, they're getting it from slave labor in Iraq and Afghanistan and Somalia, Uganda, and wherever the fuck. And they're stealing from them and exploiting those people. And then they fuck you over because you can't get a job, and you can't, if you do get a job, you're working for no damn money because they sent all the jobs overseas, and you're having to compete with slave labor. That's the rich people. That has to be pushed out. And if you are a poor white motherfucker in this country, you have got to fucking come to grips with the fact your enemy is rich white men. That is the number one thing killing you, and the number one thing killing the rest of us. And what they have done to this country is disastrous. And another major reason why they can't get one major reason why they can't get fucking legal weed in this country in most of the states is because of these capitalists don't know how to tax it, and they don't know how to go about taxing it. And if they could figure that one out, they would have legalized it decades ago, just like alcohol. That's legal. That probably does as much, if not more, damage to people than anything than weed does. And that is also the number one reason why you have so many black people in prison. One of the number one reasons is illegal marijuana and other drug laws that persecute people for nonviolent drug offenses. So, and you can talk about Biden and Kamala, or however you say her name, and how they did this and they did that, and how they're not the solution. And that's fine, that's okay. And you'll have plenty of years to talk about them. But right now, you need to push back against the obvious monkey on your back, the obvious, the obvious pigeon taking a shit in your hair, and that's the Republicans. They're the ones actually fucking you now, and you've got to get rid of them. And I come back on here and I say, we care too much, we shouldn't care so much. And then, I haven't really cared enough either. I get on here and I worry myself and I drink and I get sick and I make these videos and I complain and I argue and I do this and I do that. But, I don't go to a lot of protests. I don't go of course, I don't go anywhere, but, I don't go to a lot of rallies. I don't speak. I don't fucking push back. I don't get out there. I don't get angry. I don't get aggressive. I don't crowdfund. I don't crowdsource. I don't find ways to make money. I don't donate to these campaigns, to these people. I just get on here and I talk and I complain. And you're right. That is pretty pathetic on my part, and I really should do more, and so should all of you. But I do look it up. I do research it. I do get up on here. I do try to convey the message to you of what I think they're doing and how you can combat that. But the bottom line is this. A lot of people are talking about, we don't like Biden. There's no reason to vote for Biden. You're absolutely right about that. But you will have 4 more fucking years to decide how to deal with that. With this guy, the way he's going, he's getting more and more crazy. He's getting more and more irrational. If up to him and he has a way of doing it, there might not be fucking elections in 4 more years for you to choose. So the bottom line is this. The Democrats are neoliberal corporate centrists, and I'm not a huge supporter of neoliberal corporate centrists, but they're a fuck of a lot better than the far right president that we have now, that has all but outright announced war on the poor and the working class in America, including those people who voted for him, whether they know it or not, and who has sided with these crazy, over-the-top, evangelical, rack-ass Christians who don't want gays to get married or anything else. And if the gays and the gay community and the transgender and LGBTQ community and the poor and the lower class and the lower income and homeless people and young people and all these people, if you lose going forward, then you lost because you didn't try hard enough and because you didn't do what you have to do. So you have to go vote for Biden to get this guy out. And it does come back to a lot of leftists, including people like Larry Flynt. I like Larry Flynt, who said he was not a big fan of Hillary Clinton, but he chose her over Trump, knowing different. So for looking at the situation, and I didn't see why, but it would be easier probably to at least kind of work with and kind of try to guide a neoliberal president towards something positive than it would be an outright conservative, if not fascist president like the one we have now, who has attacked transgenders, said he would not do it, has kept transgender people out of the military, and have kept transgender people from getting certain health care and medical benefits. He has done certain things to harm the healthcare industry. He has done certain things to keep us from eating police brutality. He is helping push back attempts at trying to get rid of abusive police and regulate the police and get rid of abusive police actions that are becoming increasingly commonplace among many of these people. And he is doing everything to harm the poor and to keep us from having real justice and criminal justice in this country. And he's doing every damn thing to keep the poor from advancing ourselves and being able to get back into the middle class, or to get our children into the middle class and to reinvent and recreate a middle class in this country. And hopefully we don't become the idiots the middle class are so often prone to become, and it has happened in so many other cases in so many different countries in the world. But here is hoping, let's say, we don't become that. But when you add all of that together, and the killing of the Iranian dude, the Iranian guy, and a number of other things he did, and there's a number of crazy, outrageous, radical things he's done. And then the situation in Israel that he made worse, and that I think, if you look at the event, he said himself it was for evangelicals, but they push the Jewish issue. They make it look like some form of liberal issue. He did it for evangelical Christians. He's on record as saying that to get their vote and to court their vote. And I think that only complicates things in that region much more than it already was. And these people are always around every fucking. Again, when you're talking about the evangelical Christians, they are around every fucking negative thing in the country. Every time anything seems to be fucked up, you can count on the fundamentalist Christians to be there. Um, and their name is not, it's almost in some ways in itself like 1984, Ministry of Truth. Because at least when you would think Christian, you might think Jesus or something Jesus said. None of these people support giving to the poor. None of them support taxing the rich. None of them support anti-materialism or minimalism or any of that. None of them support anti-war. None of them are anti-war. One out of these fucking wars. None of them support criminal justice reform and helping prisoners and helping the criminal and helping rehabilitate and criminals and forgiving criminals. And none of them support forgiving the debt and forgiving people that are owing on rent, especially that you think they would, especially in an economic collapse or especially during what is becoming an economic recession or what is becoming an economic depression, and especially during a pandemic. None of them want to forgive the debt of the renters. None of them want to do any of these things. They condemn people. They're hard on crime, tough on crime, all that other horseshit. And it's like, you've got to get these people out of the way. Now, look, whatever happens with Biden and Harris is whatever happens. But there is no reason to support or vote for Trump. He has made himself the enemy. He acts as the enemy. He has become over-the-top religious. He is not the same guy you voted for. He is against you in 1,000 different fucking ways. And he's done a very piss-poor job running the society. So he's got to go. Now, does that mean everything he did was wrong? No. He was right about the Korea deal, North Korea. That was something they should give him credit for. And so much of the left is just as reactionary as so much of the right. That instead of doing that, what they do is they say, that's not right. You can't just make this deal with him. We didn't get nothing out of him. They play. It's not true. He has worked with Russia. The Democrats themselves, like idiots, they were the ones pushing it towards war with Russia. I don't know why, but he himself has done many things that are warlike. Killing the Iranian general, whatever he was, that also helped fight ISIL, basically, from my understanding. That was warlike and that was stupid, and there was no reason for that, and he did that earlier this year. I believe that was when John Bolton, whatever his name was still in the administration, and he was pushing for more war because he's a neocon. He's the same guy that got us into war with Iraq and Afghanistan, and Afghanistan too, I believe. So there is no reason to listen to or support a damn thing John Bolton says, whether it's about Trump or anyone else. But the point is, Trump did still do that, and he bombed the Syrian airports, and he just killed people. I saw recent reports not that long ago. The average, there was an American bombing, at least one, I think more than one. About 67% of the fucking dead, I believe, were children in the bombing, I believe, in Iraq. So this is what we do around the world. And one of the major things holding us back, and they're not as big of a problem this time, although I'm sure if they win, they'll go back to being the assholes they always were. And one major reason no one vote for them is a lot of the feminists. And probably some interests that might not be, that they are kind of pro-white, but it's different. Because most of those interests, like Black Lives Matter, for example, have a list of demands. And then you can look at that list of demands and you can see what they're wanting is very reasonable. It's largely criminal justice, because it's largely criminal justice reform, and they don't want police choking them to death and things like that. If you look at the feminists, they really don't have a list of demands. The only thing they have is we don't like men. And they might go on and on about white men, but if you poke them a little bit or whatever the word, tease them or whatever the word I'm looking for is, eventually they'll come around and admit it's all men. Now, if they had a list, you can look at that and say, hey, I agree with this, I don't agree with that. But they don't. A lot of it is just hatred for men for the sake of hating men. They're just misandrous and they're just anti-male. And it's largely pointless. But anyways, Biden is a preferable alternative to the idiot that we have now, who is not in any way working for the interests of the lower class people, who is being guided by and is under the influence of evangelical Christians, who has allowed neocons into his administration, who has worked with bankers, and he read out the list of bankers, names of the list of bankers or whatever the fuck. Then he hired them to work for him since day one almost. The guy has been a crook. He has fucked us, and it's time to get out of that and get someone else in there who's more pro-transgender and more pro-working class and a number of other things. And that's that. He's 666.